I only write tracks for Steve Swift reviews. He punched me twice in the face and asked for a duel. The pugilistic prophet with newbies diagnostics, like Scroobius Pip but less toxic. The UK comic shooting stars never lost it. It's 2025 and the internet still dies. Guys are chasing algorithms like a crack pipe high. Everybody
Well, I'm not sure if that's the way that you wear the headphones, but that's how wacky it is. I mean, when your head gets smashed over, there you go. The Pierre Carl Ouellette meets Tron look. I love it. I love it. I'm surprised that nobody has done that. For those of you who are only listening to this on the audio version, I mean, you're missing out on that video version to see the beauty that is Steve Swift, because this right here is the Bees of Boxing with Steve Swift, and there would be no Bees of Boxing with Steve Swift without Steve Swift. And that makes all of you his Swifties. Whoa, copyright infringement pending. Send all of your hate mail to Eddie Hearn because he's getting plenty of it right now. Steve, how the hell are you doing this week, brother? We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
I'm sweaty. I'm coughing. I had the lurgy, but I had to come on and talk to you lot because, yes, quite a lot is happening and I'm enjoying quite a lot of it.
So let's get to the biggest one first. The biggest one first is obviously Tyson Fury had his big fight, came back in how we say mediocre fashion, and went 12 boring ass rounds. So boring that even Derek Chisora decided to come back out of retirement because he thinks the world needs a hero and he can be that hero. Listen, what did you think of Tyson's performance, first of all, in the ring? And then we'll get to the things that this crazy shithouse had to say afterwards to the people outside of the ring.
I thought he was, as you say, mediocre. He's still got his herky-jerky, but that's all he's got. He doesn't have the punch. I thought Makhmudov was strangely subdued. I'm not making any comments as to why that would be, but, you know, for a kind of big Frankenstein's monster type who, I mean, I know we're only looking, well, the last match, about Dave Allen, and, you know, Dave Allen, I happen to think he's really sweet and lovely, but he's not the boxer that Tyson Fury ever was or will, or even now will be. I thought that he just had that style, and Makhmudov, at one point, you just saw him go, because he just couldn't touch him. And that frustrates one. But I thought that Tyson Fury needed to be incontrovertible. I mean, we've already got the problem with, it's not sold out, mate. And people are getting pissed off with this back for the fifth time. So I thought he needed something where he went, oh my God, he knocked him the F out. No.
Yeah, no, you got none of that. Now, thankfully, you had some decent scraps prior, you know.
You did.
Which was very good. I don't know if I would rank the one right before the match very good, but we're going to get into that one in a second. I thought that Tyson Fury went out there and looked exactly like I expected Tyson Fury to look at this point in his career. I thought that this was a very safe fight for him to take. And let's face, you know, a lot of people are saying, yeah, he should have gone out there and dominated Makhmudov and put him away at any time, myself included. But as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a second. If Tyson's actually going to come back and get another fight after this, he's going to need some rounds, because I don't think he likes to put him in during training. So he's going to need some rounds in here, you know, so why not get him in now, right?
Yes, except that you can't do that if you have said things like, I am boxing. So if you're saying things like that, and you know, boxing needs me,
right? You
can't have an off the record, off social media fight just to kind of get warmed up. So you can't. Plus, he didn't want that fight. He wanted to come straight back for the AJ fight, which didn't happen. So it was kind of, all right, then I suppose I better fight someone. And it had that feeling right the way through and during the fight.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because, you know, sitting ringside was AJ. Sitting there, which wasn't even the funnier part. The funnier part about the sitting ringside, I don't know if you noticed this earlier, was when Chris Eubank Jr. was sitting directly next to Eddie Hearn, and then somebody had to come along and sit between the two of them and then left so that there's an empty chair, and Chris just sat there on his phone the entire time, watching that. I can only imagine how uncomfortable that situation was, and I thought it was great. It was a lot better than watching the fight, I'll tell you that.
I was more excited by watching Ronnie Wood and sitting more or less next to Turkey Al-Sheikh. I thought that was great.
Ronnie looked fantastic, huh? Shout out to Ronnie Wood. Shout out to any of the Rolling Stones that are still getting out there and doing stuff like this, because, a Rolling Stone gathers no moss, Steve.
Well, you can gather it, but what you do is you have a special vault for your moss, because you can afford that. You have special different kinds of moss, some gold leaf moss, and you have a wing of your house just dedicated to moss.
You need to shut the fuck up.
I think that's fair enough.
Thank you. Listen. Sitting out there ringside as well, Anthony Joshua, who looked pleasantly impressed and was doing the nice thing and was like, no, brother, this is your night. This is your night, until Tyson grabbed a microphone. And then AJ got this look on his face like, oh, am I annoyed with this, or am I going to sell this? And am I going to sell this in a way that says, I'm annoyed with this because you haven't come to me with any negotiations yet. Don't try to get me to commit to something right here without telling me what the dollar amount is, what the A side is, what the B side. That isn't how AJ operates, and I can understand why he was doing that. But the fans are like, "Well, just make the fight, bro. Just make the fight. Meet at the clock tower, 3:00. Just make the fucking fight, bro." You guys are idiots. You're idiots because you buy into this Tyson Fury idiocy, or what? That's not even a fucking word, Steve. You got me all messed up here, right? Like, this is stupid for Tyson Fury to be doing this, because first of all, this isn't the fight for him to make. This is the wrong fight for him to make, right?
Yes, but to take your point, which is a very good point, you've got that I've come back because I love fighting. Well, then just do a tour of local gyms and fight people there. To a few people, do not say, I want the AJ fight. He wants the AJ fight, and then he's out. And I think, well, he said if he doesn't get it, he's out. I think, which Alexander Usyk must have thought, but what about our fight, Tyson? Or rather, but what about our fight? Or Ukrainian kind of voice. I can't do the accent. But anyway.
We'll edit it.
Yeah, I don't want him coming to me because he's done that, he could do, you never know. Anyway, considering the things I've said about him recently, anyway, I thought that Anthony Joshua ruined, I think he's actually ruined Tyson Fury's comeback. I think he made him look like a complete dick. And by saying, and you're right, Kelly Sauerland has already said this is going to happen at Croke Park in Dublin in September. Eddie Hearn rightly said, well, nothing's been signed. So you're right that probably Eddie's in AJ's ear saying, well, we haven't signed anything yet. And he will be the A side of this fight. He would be the A side, which I believe will take place. But he's made Tyson Fury look an absolute dick, because he said this, because it's a power move to stay in your seat and say, oh, I've got no problem with fighting you. Sure, we will fight down the line, but it just makes him think you're like that, and I'm fucking massive. So really, that's why Tyson Fury has done the tantrum thing of, I'm going home then. I'm gonna, if I don't get that, I'm going home. Because most people will say, well, off you go then, mate.
I think there's a certain thing to be said as well, that after the accident that AJ was involved in, his comeback story is now way bigger, because everybody right away, oh my God, that was so crazy, blah, blah, blah. Would he ever come back? Should he ever come back? And it's something that they almost put into place like right away, right? So it's almost like his next fight needs to be this really big, huge fight. But I think that in this age where Alexander Usyk is picking his next 3 fights that culminate at the end of that being Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury should have 3 fights that in the end of that culminate with Alexander Usyk. And I think that AJ, Anthony Joshua, isn't the first one. I think AJ's the second one. I think AJ's the second one because I think that just because you hype it in the ring first doesn't mean that it has to happen first. You can still put that buzz in there, sell it, make it happen. I think the first one does need to be Deontay Wilder. I think that that's the fight that needs to happen. And here's why I think that needs to happen, Steve. It's because I'd like to see the two of them just absolutely implode in the middle of the ring. Spontaneous combustion. So we can get this entire little experiment that Tyson Fury is doing over with. This is ridiculous. When you see who is out there in the heavyweight world right now and who's coming up and who's actually, I mean, look at the heavyweights that fought earlier in that same card. Richard Riakporhe looked absolutely spectacular. Winning, congratulations, shout out to Richard Riakporhe for winning that BBBFC championship. You look great. You know, even Jamie TKV looked great. But these are the up and coming guys, right?
Yes, and you're quite right. I think they would stink the joint out if they fought. I think they'd stink the joint out. And you're right that would make people say, well, first of all, Deontay Wilder, let's see you fighting Francis Ngannou and then go away. Or go on to exhibition boxing or something of that nature. Do not say that you are ready for a title shot when actually you're not really in any of them. I think is he 10th somewhere? But I think he's 15th and 16th in others. So, you know, no. But I think it would stink the joint out. And yes, Riakporhe and Jamie TKV, also Justice Hooney and Fraser Clark. Really good showing for Boxer. Let me just remind you.
Yes, absolutely. And when Boxer needs it right now, because apparently, you know, Bacoli is baloney, and my Boxer has a first name, and I don't know it, but he also has a second name, and it's Bolokie, whatever. Listen, I don't know what's going on there. I think that this is just a really nice way. I think that you see him get out of that contract, and I think that you see him fight F.A. Ajagba over in Zuffa. This is why we make these kind of things, right? This is why we say these things here.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and it's bound to happen. As I'm sure we'll talk about something else which happened after we discussed it last week.
Well, this is called a segue, Steve. It's not just a fancy tool that Paul Blart rides around the mall on. Okay.
I mean, look at you doing all of it. It's beautiful work. I really admire it.
Thank you. A professional. I'm still learning the craft here. Listen, when you talk about fights and fighters and things coming up, you talk about Zuffa. You talk about fights to be made. You talk about fighters getting moved over into other divisions. You get fighters moving from one promotion to another. Zuffa's making some moves right now, and they just signed a couple of more fighters from Eddie Hearn's organization. Richardson Hitchens, who has had a bit of a, you know, he was here, he was gone, he was here, he was gone. That's kind of a tough one for Eddie to swallow or whatever. And then Edgar Berlanga. I mean, listen, I think that, you know, at the end of the day, Berlanga might be the kind of guy that it seems like he's the guy that when you have him on contract, the first thing you try to do is get rid of your contract. But he's fun. He's fun, and Zuffa can make some money off of him, right?
Yes, but having said that, they didn't have a weight class for him, did they? So their weight classes, that doesn't exist, but now it seems it does, because he won't have to go up or down in weight. So they're just doing this on the hoof. And I have to say, they're adulterating their first view. You know, their first thing about being pure is just, it's finished. So they are just a normal, ordinary promotion now.
Well, I mean, isn't but everybody else that isn't on the zone just a normal average promotion? The nice thing is that they do have, much like the governing bodies, the ability to change that on the fly and add belts and add weight classes and multiply and divide by 2 and turn it to Celsius and whatever it is that the WBC seems to do so that they can get their name out there on another belt. Zuffa can do all of that stuff too, but I think that this opens up the possibility for that weird $15 million deal that they did with Conor Benn and His Excellency. I think that there's more to this deal. I don't think that that was a one-fight deal, because if that was a one-fight deal, you didn't pay for that one fight. That was not the fight you paid for against Regis Prograis. No, there's more to this than I think we're going to find out a lot more in the very near future.
I think you're right. And Eddie Hearn hinted at this, didn't he, a few weeks ago? But there were two things. The first thing is that Regis Prograis ruined that fight, or the result, for Conor Benn by retiring. Because now we've got, you couldn't put a retired boxer away. And the other thing is that Ring Magazine, I saw the headline today, went to the story, it disappeared, and it came back. And it was Conor Benn labours to a victory. And I thought, Ring Magazine saying that? Now, as I keep saying, you can say, well, they're not really Zuffa Boxing, are they, Ring Magazine? But most people put them all together, and Ring Magazine is part of Turkey Al Sheikh's empire. So if they're saying of a fighter who is allied to them, really, well, he laboured to that, then I'm just wondering what that means for Conor Benn going forward.
Well, he's the number one. He was the number one ranked guy in the WBC. So rightfully so, he should be getting a shot at the belt, which means rightfully so, he should be fighting Ryan Garcia next, right? That's a horrible idea. That is not the fight that Conor Benn should be making. In fact, Conor Benn should not even be fighting in that weight class. Let's put it that way. He looked like hell trying to make it down, and he thinks he's going to make it down to 147. He weighed in at this one at 149. What he needs to do is realize that he's going to have to go up to 154 where it's comfortable, but he's screwed at 154. He's not fighting Fundora. Do you know what Sebastian Fundora would do to Conor Benn? The way that Conor plants his feet like that? But I'll give you a fight for him at 154. Here's the fight for Conor Benn that nobody's talking about yet at 154. Keith Thurman. Give him one time. Give me Conor Benn and one time. I think that's a fun fight. I think that there's something to be sold there, because I think that trying to get Conor Benn to go down to 147 is a horrible idea. I think that, and I said this, I had a conversation with a friend of mine over yesterday after I think that Conor trying to do 147 again is not going to happen. That's why they had to do this at a catch weight. And I think that Ryan Garcia tattoos his head off. I think that Conor Benn turned into Chris Eubank Jr. Because the same thing that we talked about with Chris Eubank Jr. in his last fight, and how he looked so drawn out, how he looked so worn, how he looked so out of it, and it showed in the performance. Well, Conor Benn just had to go through that same exact thing, because this weight cutting thing is got to stop. It's got to stop. So that means he's got to go up to 154, right? And when he goes up to 154, he's done.
Yeah, and this is what Eddie Hearn has said. So, there's that kind of, hey, be good there, because he knows the situation there. Plus, you're quite right. Conor Benn said the other day, if you've got 2 arms and 2 legs, you can fight anywhere. You can fight at any weight. In the meantime, Carl Froch, my great mate, tea on the lawn and croquet, he said, I spoke to Conor Benn and said, look a little bit drawn, mate. And he immediately said, I feel great, I feel great. What do you mean, I feel great? So, he was concerned about that, and he didn't look good. And he didn't look good against a really labouring Regis Prograis. And I suspect that if you are the gentleman at Zuffa Boxing, you're thinking, what have we got here? I think we've got buyer's remorse, because we bought him for all this money because of his ground game. Then he took himself off socials, and we didn't realize he came with a hype man, which is the one whose knob we want to tweak by saying, we've got your Chinese bauble here, mate. So, that hype man, Eddie Hearn, I think he was in Conor's ear saying, okay, let's do this then. I don't know, but it could be because the last thing you do is you don't take yourself off fucking social media when you have been bought for $15 million. You start making so much shit for everybody that Zuffa Boxing either have to come to you and say, stop that, thank you, but stop it. Or they love it and say, look what we bought. We are constantly in the media.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because when you do something like that for $15 million, you expect to get the win. You expect to get the stuff that goes along with it. You expect to get all of the accolades afterwards and hype up your guy for the next thing. And even Chris Mannix afterwards went on social media and even talked about the fact that there was nothing. There was no after fight interview. There was like, raise your hand, boom, on to the next one. Like it was a fight at the local armory. You know what I mean? At the VFW hall or wherever the hell it was. Like, this was not the big thing that they asked for. So what you saw here, Steve, was another one of these back and forths that we're having between the sanctioning bodies and the thing that is Zuffa Boxing. And then you saw His Excellency interject himself into the whole Tyson Fury AJ thing by grabbing the mic himself and saying, hey, this is the fight. This is what we're doing. Are you on board, AJ? It was a bit of a wild thing going on. Everybody's trying to make fights. It was this weird dick swinging contest that was going on the entire night, back and forth. And you're watching the business of boxing happen, which kind of took away from the boxing of boxing in the entire thing, because there were some decent fights on this card. The main event was not one of them. So like, what do you do? What do you do from this point on now with Conor Benn? Do you think that that's actually going to be something that they can pull together?
No, because they're in a terrible state for boxing. And by the way, I take your point entirely regarding the dick swinging. I think that the main event and the co-main event were purely there to facilitate the business of boxing, not the boxing of boxing. As someone said on comments that I saw, I'm glad I didn't spend 500 quid to go and sit and watch this. Absolutely, because it was terrible. Both fights weren't good. But I think if you're for boxing, you're in a terrible state here, a very difficult one, because Conor Benn has said many times, I want that green belt. I remember that green belt being in my house with my dad. I want that green belt. And he wants Ryan Garcia because it's a big fight. So putting aside the weight stuff, and you're absolutely right, I think, Zuffa are going to have to negotiate with the WBC. And Mauricio Sullivan's going to be doing this. He's a wily veteran. Now, don't like some of his moves. He's a wily veteran. So he's going to be talking like Jayar Patai, who's been very quiet lately, but can't be happy about the IBF situation. He's going to be talking quite loudly about that. But you can't release him, because he'll go back to Eddie, who will say, come here, son. I've got boot tennis for you to fight. And that's a massive fight.
This is going to come down to money over belt again. Because, and who does it look better for or worse for if the sanctioning bodies just keep stripping people of these belts? Because of this poor little company that people are picking on, this new upstart company, people are picking on Dana, and these fighters are just trying to get paid, right? These fighters are just trying to get paid. They're just trying to get these deals done, because I think that you could very well see that fight get made, between Conor Benn, Ryan Garcia for that belt. And then somewhere you see that back page of that Zuffa contract with Conor Benn come up. Well, now you're in the fucking mix with it. And then you see Oscar De La Hoya fucking chime in and start chirping off about because his guy's Ryan Garcia. And then I think you see Ryan Garcia leave Oscar De La Hoya and sign with Zuffa Boxing. Then you've got the WBC up over a barrel, because what are they going to do? They either continue with it or they strip Ryan Garcia of the belt. They strip Ryan Garcia of the belt. Well, now that's another person that they've yet stripped of the belt because of this Zuffa Boxing thing. Like, I think that they're all playing a very dangerous game here. Whereas, listen, the only people that are getting screwed in this are the fighters and the fans.
Yes, absolutely. But I appreciate your view about this little company, but to make that narrative work, you need Derek Chisora as your hype man. You can't have Dana White as your hype man, because he's too much of a businessman, and people go, "Aren't you a millionaire?" Well, I'm not speaking to you then. Nobody said that about Eddie. Now, Eddie may well be a millionaire, but Eddie Hearn seems like a bloke who is trying to do a good deal because he's got that going on. You know, Frank Smith, you think, you're a businessman. Whereas Eddie, he's got that iron, mate, you're right. Yeah, I'm really pissed off, actually. Apples and pears, whistle and flute. And he's got that. That is what Zuffa need at the moment. Now, WBC, they are tweaking the nose a bit, because they just got involved with one of the Ali family around the Muhammad Ali Act. They've allied themselves. So there'll be more people doing this just to say, how do we stick it to Zuffa? Now, that might not be the reason. It might be that they really love the Muhammad Ali Act. But if they are saying, how do we get another shot in this boxing skirmish? Let's ally ourselves to that. So you're going to see a lot more of this going forward.
And you have to ask yourself at this point, if this is just some weird right-left political thing that's going on because of Dana and his allegiance and his alliance with the current president of the United States of America, who will ultimately have the final say in what happens with this Ali Act stuff, right?
I mean, he's a matchmaker now. He's a matchmaker for UFC now, it seems. So, you know, he's pushed his way into, okay, well, I want to see this fighter on then. So it's, not that he did, surely not.
I can't imagine what the fine folks over in Gypsyville, there where you live, think of the United States of America and this wonderful thing. Could you imagine if they put on fights in the front yard of Parliament over there, or, you know, in the Queen's Manor, or wherever the hell it is?
The Queen's Manor? Are you talking about Buckingham Palace or Chequers? You're talking about
Is this still called Buckingham Palace? Is that what they still call it?
It's called Buckingham Palace.
I wasn't sure because they changed the name. Like Skydome isn't the Skydome here anymore. I didn't know if like somebody had bought up like licensing rights and naming rights. Like, you know, it's now the RBC House of the Queen.
Brought to you by McDonald's. It's not that. And it's not called Gypsyville. It's Cream Tea Town. That's where I live.
Oh, yes.
Cucumber Manners. Cream Tea Town.
Yes, I thought I took you as more of a Fackham Hall kind of guy, though, Steve.
Yes, although having seen that show, I wouldn't endorse it in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, so you Brits aren't all alike. All right. Well, listen. We've got some great boxing coming up. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with all of this. You know, the Zuffa versus sanctioning bodies, all of the like, where do we actually get a chance to put an end to this? And who's going to win this? Who's going to win this fight? Right? That's really what it's going to come down to. Is this going to be a longevity thing? Is this going to be let's see who can withstand, who's got more lawyer money? Well, what's going on here?
It will be, but in the meantime, and there's a finite date to this, but I don't know what it is yet. In the meantime, what certainly Matchroom, DAZN are doing is that they are saying, who else wants to get involved in boxing then? Come to us, TNT Sports. came to them this or palled up with them this week. So the more of that, the better for me. But they're saying, come to us if you can't, if you don't want the Paramount Plus deal, if you don't want, if you don't want Zuffa Boxing, if you want to get boxing on, we'll get it on for you. That's going to be really interesting. It's going to be monolithic Zuffa Boxing versus a raggle-taggle group of very interesting providers in the Zones camp. It's really shaping up that way, and we called it bloody months ago.
Well, yes, we did. Yes, we did, Steve. Absolutely. And we're going to continue to do things like that because that's kind of what we do. And eventually all of you out there, will have fun along with this ride with us and realize that there's just certain lessons that we teach here, like this one.
Come to the children. Wu-Tang is for the children. We teach the children.
You were so close. The edge was there, Steve. The edge was there. It was like the 12th round against Tyson Fury. You thought you were getting out of it, and then all of a sudden you had to sit there and listen to him talk about some bullshit afterwards.
As soon as you said the word lessons, I thought, oh no.
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. And what did you forget to do, Steve? You've got to tuck your chin.